And some of the feedback that I've seen is that you go and see customers to see them after they've been in a couple of days or after a few weeks, and they say, I can't believe how warm it is. Just keeping the windows open, that's great, you know what I mean? Because they're not turning the boiler on, they're not turning the air source heat pump on, not using that electricity. So it is evident in the finished product, and the feedback from customers has been very positive.
Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank
you for joining me. So an exciting topic today is behind the build. So obviously working for Anwyl, we know the care, consideration, thought that goes behind building every house. But I think it's a really exciting topic to share with our customers and our listeners. So I think you guys have a really good insight as well into behind the build, working very closely with the build team. So do you want to start by introducing yourselves?
Yeah, hi, I'm Shaun, Sumner. I'm the construction director for Anwyl Lancashire. I'm in charge of the build team, and I look at how we deliver our developments, build routes, budgets, making sure we achieve the right quality and work safely.
My name is Silcock. I'm the area construction manager for Cheshire, North Wales. I look after 4 developments for the company. Like Shaun, really very much involved with site running, working with the site team, site managers, subcontractors, again, making sure we're working from a quality perspective, working with the quantity surveyors from a budgeting point of view, again, design, feedback.
So I think a good place to start is that people might forget about is obviously the build starts off site. So where does it really start in terms of materials, working with the quantity surveyors and the buying team, as you say?
Okay, it really starts with the planners. So when we buy a site, we have to discuss with the local planning authority about the types of materials that we're going to use, what the houses look like. And they're having more and more influence these days. We're seeing a move away from our standard housing range. And we've got a few sites now that are more bespoke as a result of like changing to planning requirements.
I think as well, it's not a topic that comes up quite a lot when speaking to customers and speaking to people who are looking from the outside in, maybe think that as a builder, we build what we want to build, and they don't appreciate the influence that the councils and the planning authority have on what we build, the type of houses we build, the elevation treatments. So I think it's quite interesting when you speak to people who haven't got any insight into that. They're quite took back by it really, by how much we sort of do work with all those people and authorities to make sure we're building the best product for the area, fits in the area, and also what the area wants, requires. So it always makes me laugh how people think that we just buy the land and build whatever we want on it. It's not always, that's not the case, far from it.
In terms of obviously working with partners and suppliers, we've got a really good long-standing network of people that we work with.
Yeah, since the business in Lancashire was formed, we've worked with the same supply chain, and we get excellent service, and it really is a partnership. And that's part of our success, is the relationship we have with our subcontractors and suppliers.
Very much so, and similar in like Cheshire, North Wales. Obviously, we've been working with a lot of those suppliers for a long, long time. And we do a really good working relationship with a lot of those suppliers, to the point where and the team, the site managers, lads on the ground, can pick up the phone. They know what they're speaking to. They can get to the people they need straight away, and they know that they're going to give us the best service and help as much as they can. But equally, I think it's important to note that we do have a great team of buyers within the company, and they sort of go a little bit unseen sometimes, I think, but they're doing a fantastic job in terms of procuring the right products, making sure that we're not sourcing them from too far afield. Again, a focus on the carbon footprint that's produced by bringing those materials to site, making sure that's sustainable. But equally, giving us prompts as well about when we need to be calling these materials off, leading times, if they're going out. It's a real big group effort, a real team effort, the materials themselves and then the relationships we have with suppliers is great, but I think equally the buyers in the background and the work they do is second to none as well. So it's a real team effort in terms of material and getting it to site, really.
Definitely. So materials are at site, we're ready to go. Can you give us a little bit of a not too complicated overview of the build process of a house?
Okay, so the first thing is if the site's a brownfield site, it needs to be remediated, like this one where we're at today. So we have to get the site cleaned up, ready for development. Then we put in the road and sewer network and the services. Then simply we work from the ground up with the foundations, brickwork, floors, roof, and then we fit out the home to our specification. But that's at that point, that's when customers can, make some choices and get extras and things. That's when we start putting those in. Then we get to a point where the street scene is ready and the site is safe, and then we start to occupy. I have to say, I should rewind really. That's the biggest consideration of my job, is how we can build the site safely and occupy it so that customers can move in with no risk at all, so they're not troubled by anything we're doing with the build or with deliveries.
Maybe for you, Phil, what are the key sort of markers in the home build process where customers might be involved, or they might see certain stages of the house being ready?
Yeah, so obviously our sort of customer journey, we have a meet the builder. So again, if we reserve the property, subject to what stage that build the property is reserved, we can go and show them it. Quite funny really, when we do reserve it slab, I don't know about you, Shaun, but when I've met customers and shown them the property for the first time, just so they can get an idea of what they're going to be looking out on, where the front door is going to be, the drive. And a lot of the time when it's a slab and there's no walls up, the comment always comes back is, oh, it's small. Yeah, it feels so small. It's because you've got nothing around you in terms of perspective. And I do try and explain that, but the amount of time that people go away and they sort of feedback to the sales is, oh, it's really small. But if you actually bring them into a show house of a similar house, they're at ease again. So again, subject to where we are in terms of build and for what point of reservation we can show them. But again, if the point of build is, let's just say the roof's on and we're first fixed and we're ready to what we call a pre-plaster. So that's quite a big stage for us from our point. It's making sure that not only the fabric of the building, but all the bits inside it, so your plumbing, your electrical, your joinery, all that, your insulation's in the right place. Before we cover it up with plasterboards and plaster, there's a really good time there to bring the customer in. Again, you get to see a lot of the what's called most like behind the walls. It's always quite a.
I agree, but I think that customers don't realise how much care and attention goes into what they can't see.
Yeah,
and when they come in and it looks really good and it's all well presented and clean and tidy and we do get a lot of positive feedback at that stage. Never realised so much work went into this. And the site managers can be really proud of what they do at that stage, and it gives the customer, because a lot of the time customers come in here and they've no idea of what's going on behind the walls. Yeah. But as Phil says, to get them in at what we call the first fix or pre-plaster stage before we cover it up, and it's a good opportunity for them to check as well that those extra TV points or whatever they've chosen are in the right place. This is, and you point it out to them and say, oh, this is the extra socket that you've ordered, and right, great.
Yeah, definitely. Also, later on down the line, when you meet the customer, sometimes at a finished stage, and it's natural to be excited about your new home, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You've been waiting for it for the last 6 months, and you're sort of at home thinking about what TV you're going to have, what three-piece you're going to put, this, that, and the other. When the site managers are walking around explaining to you about your safe zones and where you can drill and when you can't drill, and as much as you'd like to think that these people are taking, there's loads of interest, I think in my heart they're really thinking about where my TV is going. You know what I mean? So at first fix, a really good option to sort of say, look, this is why we call it a safe zone. This is how we build it in terms of sockets and pipe work, and this is where they're going to be running. So it gives you a good understanding of, again, when you do move into your house and you get the DIY kit out, you've got a good idea of hopefully remembering where you can and can't sort of drill and try and avoid any accidents with it, come bumping into pipe work and electrics. But again, it is covered in your home user guide. But yeah, I think sometimes people get a bit carried away, certainly excited, which is natural, isn't it? You go into that when you buy your new home. So that's a really good, really important part of it for me is, and I think customers seeing the houses at that stage, it's a real benefit for everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time for people. I think perhaps those key stages haven't changed, but one thing that's worth discussing is how the build process have changed. Obviously, methods have changed and a lot of new things have affected that. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about maybe how it's changed in the last 5 or 10 years for us?
Yeah, there's a lot of off-site construction used now too. We've been challenged for as long as I've been in the house building industry to become more efficient and more productive. So we've looked at a lot of off-site techniques, on this particular development, and I know on some of Phil's, we're using a product called Smart Roof, which is an off-site roof cassette system, and a roof that would have taken 3 weeks to build traditionally, where we've got an attic bedroom. It used to take, say, between 2.5 and 3 weeks. Now 2 days, and it's finished.
I think on the back of that, Shaun, as well, just to add is, I think from a build point of view, certainly as a site manager, my experience, getting the roof on is such a big thing. It's good to get the roof on, because you sort of you get into that point where you're feeling a lot more in control of that build now. You're not reliant on the weather. Do you know what I mean? You're not reliant on other factors. And like Shaun said, the advantage of that system really does help in terms of trying to keep things moving and get the property watertight as quick as we can. Yeah. So it's a real advantage.
Over the past few years, we've seen quite a lot of changes in the energy that we use on site. So we're using a lot of renewable technology now. So we've got solar panels on every job, and we're starting to install air source heat pumps, which is great for our customers in terms of the latest technology and lower running costs and things. But it's presented us with some challenges, because a new technology, we've got to get our existing supply chain retrained to be able to install those, which has worked well. Again, we talked about earlier the relationship we have with our suppliers. Well, we partnered with the air source heat pump supplier, got all of our staff, including obviously the installers, accredited, but equally all the site management team, the sales team and marketing team. So, we can advise our customers exactly what they're getting. Yeah. And looking forward, that's going to be potentially our biggest challenge, our opportunity, more like, as we move away from gas heating in new homes.
I think it's a learning curve for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's still not brand new. It's been around a while, but I think certainly the more we're seeing in terms of the Part L application coming in and using those air source heat pumps, the interface with these solar and the PV panels. And again, it's quite new to us, certainly our site teams, site managers, our sales teams. So it's a real learning curve for everybody. But we've been on plenty of courses. We've been to see, we've been to where they manufacture them, some of them up in Burnley. Had a real good few days there, speaking to them and looking at the product and seeing how it works. So good insight into it. But I think it's definitely a journey, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's something to be interesting to see how we get on. But it's exciting times, really. Big change.
Definitely. I think you touched on it a little bit there, but one of the really important factors obviously on site is the people who work here, Team Anwyl, and obviously stretching into the contractors and trades that work on site with us. So from an Anwyl perspective, who is here on site day to day managing the build? Okay,
so on a typical site, we have a site manager, assistant site manager, we have a few trainee assistant site managers around the business, and we'll have a directly employed Anwyl forklift truck driver and operative as well. Then we've obviously got our sales team. So depending on how busy the development is, there may be a couple of sales advisors on there. The whole site then is overseen by an area construction manager like Phil and an area sales manager.
And I think one of the things you get from obviously working so closely with the team is the quality. So what are some of the checks and points along the way that we do to ensure quality in every build?
Okay, well, we have sort of 3 different sorts of checks, if you will. So there's statutory checks to make sure we comply with building regulations. There's then checks for the warranty that we supply with the home for the NHBC. And then there's our own quality checks that we do as part of our process. So starting in the ground, we have an app that we've developed internally, a quality app, where we photograph elements of work to demonstrate compliance. At that same stage, we'll call out the building inspector or the NHBC, or both, depending if NHBC are doing warranty and building control. And similarly, through the superstructure, then we use that app. We've also developed the app so that we can produce a compliance report to show that we're complying with what's called Part L of the building regulations, which is about proving that all the insulation is in place below the slab, door thresholds in the cavities, that the window cavity closers are fitted properly, that the insulation is in the loft, that all the heating controls are in place. and we commissioning certificate is done. When that is just on the Part L app, when we finished the home, we can't get a final inspection for building control unless that report has been independently validated. So we send that off to an external assessor. He then checks it, signs it off. Then we can present it to building control to show that the house complies with Part L of the building regulations. Through the rest of the build, we've got the NHBC doing foundation inspections, then foundations and drainage, superstructure, pre-plaster, and final. That's a condition of their warranty. So we offer a 10-year warranty with our home. In order to be able to do that, they've got to sign off those stages. So they check that. Ahead of all those things, our site managers carry out quality checks to ensure that we're building in accordance with the specification, the NHBC standards, and complying with building regulations. So and the final thing is there's an organisation called the New Homes Quality Board, and all of our processes have got to comply with their requirements. So our site managers check the final finished house in accordance with the checks required by the New Homes Quality Board, so that if a customer then wants to bring in an external assessor, which they've got every right to do, that we've already done all those checks before they bring in their external assessor. So there's a lot of checks and balances along the way.
Very comprehensive.
Very. I think as well, going back to the
it's a big part of our job, isn't it?
Massive, but going back to the app, found a real benefit in that in terms of, later on down the line, if there are any issues, any bits that you need to you can refer back to the app, and there's all the different stages you can look at, all different photos, you know what I mean? So you can rule out a lot of stuff. If you do have an issue which might arise, you can go back on the app and you can flick through that property, look at the different stages. 9 times out of 10, there's the wealth of information in there, you know what I mean, from that house going right away from the foundation through to the finished article, which really helps sort of narrow things down if there's something that we need to address. So it's really been a big asset to us, I think, something we developed that's been really helpful.
Yeah, and I think obviously another sort of element that touches on that is the attention to detail we pay when we build, which is one of our brand promises. So obviously very important to us. What do you think sort of that we do in that element makes Anwyl so special?
Well, I think it's how much do people care about the attention to detail. And I used the example before of when we take a customer into first fix, when you go into the property before the plasterboard is fitted, you can see the quality of all the mechanical electrical installation, the way the insulation has been fitted, how tidy the property is, how everything's marked up properly, and all that is lost once the plasterboard goes on. You never see any of that at all. Yeah. And I like Phil said, I like customers to see that stage so they can see that whoever built this house really cares. The stuff in the finishes, so in a room like this, everybody can see whether the paintwork and the plaster's good or the mastic finish or the kitchen's fitted right. That's pretty, self-evident. But it's the stuff you can't see that I'm most concerned about. When I see some brickwork below ground sometimes, and it's as good as the facework above ground, and it's just getting buried.
Yeah.
And I
like to set standards, doesn't Shaun? That sets a standard right from the word go.
Well, I make a point, Phil, of going speaking to the bricklayers below ground and sort of thanking them for what they do, because I say your work is other than two courses you can't see, but the rest of it
goes such a long way.
And you say it'd be equally as good as the facework we do above ground.
So I think for me, go fast forward, and when I walk around developments, especially areas that are occupied with the managers, I think for me, when a customer comes out and says, "Hi Shaun, how are you doing?" and they're not coming out with anything regarding the house, they're coming out to say hello to the site manager. How are you doing? Because the site manager, they've moved that purchaser in, new home, it's all very overwhelming. They've built that rapport with the customer. And the customer feels that they can come out and say hello and ask a little bit about Shaun or the site manager, particularly whoever we were talking about. For me, they've done a really good job there, because they're actually engaging with the site team and not coming out to they're really just interested in the site.
I feel really proud when that happens.
Yeah,
Phil. If I'm walking down the site with a site manager and customers come across and they're engaging with the site team,
exactly.
This is great. They're doing a really good
100%.
job.
They're coming out, they're not avoiding them.
Yeah.
They're always waving, they're driving past, they're waving, they're happy. Great, that's perfect. I mean, we've achieved what we set out to achieve there. They're happy in the house, they're happy in their environment. That's great. So that's you've got it right when that happens, and fortunately for us, it's a regular thing. Yeah. So really proud. Yeah. It's a good moment.
Definitely. And I think you've touched on a little bit there as well, but sort of communication with customers, that's a massive part of the process in terms of, if anything is to happen, making sure that's communicated, what they can expect when they move in, all that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, it's managing their expectations, really. And as I said earlier about trying to plan the development in such a way that they have as little disruptions as practically possible. But when we do have to, if we've got a crane working, down the street across the road, and that we might tell them the day before, look, we're going to be bringing a crane in tomorrow, so just be aware. It'll be passing your house, and so we keep them informed of what's going on in terms of the construction activity. But when we're building the home, it's about explaining them what to expect at completion. So obviously the finished home, we want the highest standard, but sometimes things do go wrong, and we have processes to manage that, and we've got an excellent customer service department who assist us with that, and we've got good processes in place to report things and get them attended to. I mean, our site managers go and see the customer on the day they move in, a thing called key release, we call it, and if there was anything, we would pick it up then. But equally, if there isn't, we check in on them after 4 weeks to make sure everything's okay.
As well that as much as we've put as much time and effort into that home, building it, our managers and site team, they're in it, they're out of it every day. They're not sat on sofa level watching Coronation Street when a car comes round the corner and puts a shadow on the wall. Do you know what? There will be things that you might pick up that we've not. Do you know what I mean? We've not missed it intentionally. If we missed something, okay, fair enough. We'll come and look at it, and if it's wrong, we're going to put it right for you. So it's having that, putting the customer at ease. That just because you've got your keys doesn't mean we're running away. Yeah. We're here, and again, that rapport with the site manager, someone they feel comfortable picking the phone up to, or grabbing in the street and giving them a shout. Can you come and have a little look at this? And making sure that site team, can deal with that, and and put them in the right direction and help them out. It's having that. It's a huge part of what we do.
Yeah, and I think inevitably one thing that we can expect to face are some challenges along the way. It's just the nature of the industry, whether that's the weather, delays in materials. It's always going to happen. Do you want to talk about a little bit of some of the things that we might face along the way and how we mitigate for those?
Yeah, you talk about the weather, that's or encountering a change in ground conditions or something like that, which can be a significant delay. If we find a particularly poor area of ground on a site and we have to change the foundation specification, there is a delay. We've got to get it redesigned, we've got to get that approved and then move forward. But it's all about communication with the customer and keeping them informed the best we can. We do work in some areas where the weather is a bit challenging, so we do lose time through the winter. Our build schedules, our build programs do have time in there, because we build all year round, and you can't expect to be laying bricks every single day. No. So there is time built in. But yeah, unfortunately, sometimes the things go wrong, like the brick factory, the kiln breaks down, and material lead-ins go out, and then it delays a property. So it's about informing the customer at the earliest opportunity and being honest about it as well.
I think as well, Shaun, like things like our materials, like the blocks and the bricks we bring in, again, back to the buyers and procurement and stuff, those are coming in packed, aren't they? Wrapped up, so that the bricklayers, some bricks are more porous than others. So when the time they get onto the scaffolding, they've not been sat out in the weather. They've been protected whilst they've been stored. So it gives the bricklayers a really good chance to keep building. Because trying to lay a brick that's absolutely sodden, it just sinks in the mortar, makes a mess of everything, and they just won't do it because it just makes more of a mess. There's more to lose than there is to gain.
Yeah.
So again, bringing them materials in covered. We have like the bags that the lads stack the brick on the scaffolding. We have bags that go over them. So if it does rain during the night, do you know what? The bricks aren't getting soaking wet. Hessian and stuff when the colder months. Looking at accelerators in mortar so that they're not getting exposed in the evening to the frost and all those sort of things. I think that go on in the background that no one really sees.
Lots of things we need to mitigate.
So
on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Again, it's there's a lot that goes into it, and again storage and again procurement comes down to things like them bricks coming covered, protection materials, and again our compound set up, the way it's set up to protect the timber, so again it's not getting exposed to the weather. There are loads of shelters there for putting timber and stuff like that, and etc. So
we avoid issues with shrinkage and stuff then in the property.
So there's a lot that sort of we take for granted. You walk past it and you just think it's just a container, or it's just a rack, you know what I mean, or it's just a scaffold rack or whatever, and why do we need that roof over it? Do you know what I mean? It's going to be outside anyway. Well, again, it's to stop it getting saturated. It's set on a rack properly so it doesn't bend and bow. All those things we need to take for granted. That there are efforts that we go to make sure that keeping that material in a position, in a condition where it's going to be usable. And
I think one of the hot topics at the moment is sustainability and how that's changing the housing industry and the way that we build. So do you want to talk a little bit, I think you touched earlier on sort of like air source heat pumps, solar panels. Do you want to speak a little bit more about how we've been using those and how they're being integrated into homes now?
Okay, so when the building regulations changed last year, we had to redesign our houses to be more energy efficient simply. So the cavity insulation now is 150 millimeters wide from 100. Got 500 millimeters in the attic, and the technologies that we're using now, like air source heat pumps and solar panels, are making the homes much more efficient. And even homes that we've got with gas boilers in now run at a lower temperature, so that they use less energy than they did 2 years ago.
Even the design of the slab underneath what's in the floor, the insulation that's under there is increased, and not just that, but the product itself.
It's a better performing product.
But so much better performing, and from a thermal point of view, it's got much better performance value. And some of the feedback that I've seen is that you go and see customers to see them after they've been in a couple of days or after a few weeks, and they say, I can't believe how warm it is. Just keeping the windows open, that's great. You know what I mean? Because they're not turning the boiler on, they're not turning the air source heat pump on, not using that electricity. So it is evident in the finished product, and the feedback from customers has been very positive.
Yeah, I think EPCs are a big talking point at the moment, and obviously ours are, touching AB always now. Obviously that's changed recently. Do we think there are more upcoming changes that we'll see in the next maybe 5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. In 2025, there'll be no more gas into new homes. So stuff that gets projects that get building regulations approval from then will not have gas. So we're looking at using more air source heat pumps, but we're also looking at other technologies like ground source heat pumps as well, possibly like district heating.
Yeah. We're already doing a job. We're doing a job. We started a job in Cholton. That has no gas on it. So that's one of the first developments I've worked on where there's no gas to take into account.
Yeah.
So although it's 2025 when they're looking at making that statutory moving forward, we're already on board. We're already starting it as well. So I think by that point it'll just be.
There's some changes for customers because particularly with the cooking arrangements, the heating doesn't seem to be. Yeah. We don't get much in the way of sort of negativity. Let's put it that way. But people who cook on gas, maybe some people like cooking on gas, and so there's some sort of changes that consumers are going to have to get used to.
Yeah, so changing habits, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, that was a bad thing. Not always a bad thing. No.
Well, the feedback that we've had on our site where we're using air source heat pumps is excellent.
Yeah.
And I said if I could retrofit one in my home easily, I would do.
Yeah.
But it's all of the homes that we're building now that still have gas boilers will be able to take an air source heat pump.
Yeah.
So the pipework has been sized accordingly so that if it needs to be changed, they can fit an air source heat pump.
Yeah, it's making homes fit for the future.
That's
isn't
right.
it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you noticed changes in the way that we sort of manage how we impact the environment as we build as well?
Yeah, definitely. From a waste perspective, we recycle practically everything off site now. There's very, very little at all goes to landfill.
It's reused, isn't it, Shaun? Like the appliances,
Yeah.
a lot of that polystyrene that comes pre-molded for that oven, or actually gets reused. Another one, it's not just broke down and rebuilt, remolded. It's actually reused, which is great because it's even less impact on the environment,
Absolutely.
isn't it? So things like that we're not just about recycling, but it's also reusing. So it's not having to be recycled, because when you recycle something, it comes at a cost and at an impact, although it's for the better cause. But reusing it is such an advantage.
There's definitely been large strides made in that over the last few years. The other thing we're seeing a lot more of is the sort of ecology measures that we have to take, which we find out when we're considering to buy a site. We obviously get environmental reports prepared. Then through the planning process, we have to agree with the council and the environmental protection team what we're going to do. So things like bat boxes, bird boxes, hedgehog runs, owl corridors. I've had another job. If we have great crested newts on site, we have ecologists visiting the site. This has been going on for a while, by the way. It's not a new thing.
Also, water courses,
protection of water courses, that
huge.
With the nutrient neutrality issues that society faces, and the way that water courses, unfortunately, are getting polluted from other sectors. Let me put it that way. But we have to take much more stringent measures than we've ever done, and rightly so, I have to say. And that's been about education.
Definitely.
We've never, as long as I've been in the industry in 40 years, we've never knowingly gone out to recklessly, let surface water run off in the wrong way.
No.
So I think that's because as a business and as an industry, we're much more aware. But there's a higher expectation from society as well. People are more concerned about the environment, and rightly so.
Definitely.
So.
I think obviously when we're building, we're in a community for a long time. It can be a couple of years based on how many homes we're building. How do we sort of integrate ourselves with that community? Help them understand what we're doing, what's going to be here in the end, and make sure the people that move to our development sort of can integrate into that community, if you will. Yeah.
So in terms of keeping our customers up to date with the development and what we're doing, and we have on our website. We have information on there about things like people want to know when's the play equipment going in. If as a parent you'd be like, right, so when's the park?
This is all development specific, by the way. It's not just across
generic.
The board. It's go to your development where you live,
that's it.
And you can find a whole host of information. Sorry, Shaun, you can.
No, it's okay. So we update that on a quarterly basis. So about when are the roads being final surfaced, when are the street names, the park, the public open space, tree planting, because we can only do that in certain seasons. So we keep our customers up to date with that, and at the point of sale, we explain all this to them and show them where they can find that information. Again, when they move in the house, we tell them again, say, look, this is the sales team. Even though once the customers move in, really they have no reason to just come and see the sales team, but you do see that people do pop in for a chat and just see how things are going, and they build, because they're with them throughout the sales journey, they build a good relationship with them. And the number, if you go into the sales office now, the number of thank you cards and that, and the messages inside are lovely, So there's that kind of informal.
We do a lot of work with the schools as well, don't we, Shaun? Suddenly we got a new site, just go and visit the schools, give them an insight, the kids. Also a bit of a steer in terms of what dangers are involved, because again, children love, playing on building sites, don't they, or see it as a big place to play, and it's again educating them as to the dangers and the risks. But equally, not just that, but also what's coming up, what they can expect to see, and that interface as well is really important.
We do a lot of work with them. We have a community fund for every development as well, which is great. So we can support Scout Group, the allotment society, or the kids football team, or whatever. When we move into an area that's advertised, and there's been some really nice stories around lots of developments where we've supported like local community groups, which has gone down well with the existing residents as well as our new customers.
Yeah. So. Yeah, lots going on. I think it's always a big change, isn't it, for any community? Yeah. I think looking into the future, there's obviously, as you said, things coming up in 2025, and I'm sure beyond that'll change. How do you see house building changing sort of maybe over the next 10 or 20 years, even more so than it already has?
I think there's got to be a move towards more off-site construction. There are people doing it now. The technology exists. But if we want the volume of new homes that government tell us we need, we either need to invest a lot more in the skills to get the people to be able to do it, free up the land to do it. But I can see off-site taking a bigger playing a bigger part. Yeah. There's companies doing it already. We're doing some timber frame, and lots of companies do timber frame. But those panelised construction systems where you can put a house up basically to shell in less than a week, and that's got to be the way forward. We're still there's still a lot of traditional build, but when you look at things like whole life carbon, which means assessing the amount of carbon that goes into the manufacture of the construction materials, their carbon in use, and then carbon to get rid of at the end of the life of the building. When you start looking at that, you really start to be steered towards off-site, and because it can be made much more efficient. There's a lot of upfront investment required, and that's perhaps why it's not taken off in the way that it's taken off.
I think as well, Shaun, from our side, building not just weather restraints. Obviously, we have planning permission on site.
Yeah.
Certain hours we can actually work within. And again, when you're working off site in factories, a lot of these places work on a shift basis. A lot of them are working 24/7 on different shifts. They're not affected by the weather, not affected by planning conditions, not affected. Do you know what I mean? There's a regular workforce doing, different shifts. And like Shaun says, definitely off-site is and being able to just bring it in and position it. But equally, I think what is important and not a concern, but something I'm keep a close eye on is, let's not deviate too far. The way we build at the moment, traditionally, block brick, stood the test of time, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. Let's be right about it. It stood the test of time. So yes, I'm 100% all for new products, new systems, but we've got to make sure that they do last, that they are sustainable. And funny, a friend of mine sent me a picture the other day. He's into cars. He sent me a picture of a small sticker on a windscreen that said, buy a sustainable car, buy one that lasts 100 years. It's like an 100-year-old car. And I find it quite funny, but I thought, you know what, it's safer building, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what, it's not just about that 10-year warranty. It's about, what when they sell it on, I'm sure your house, certainly my house is probably getting up towards 100-year mark, and they're still in really good condition, maintained. And these products have got to last. So the 100%, we've got to look at different ways of building, different ways of using different materials, but think equally close eye needs to be kept on
long-term
making
quality.
sure that they can, because again, people say, do building traditionally out of brick and block, it's slower, it's this, that, and the other. Yeah, but it's stood the test of time, hasn't it? It's stood a long time. Do you know what I mean? And we know it works.
Yeah.
It's there. The proof is there. And that's not saying that timber frame hasn't, not at all. Not, but I'm just talking about anything that is produced off-site, anything we change, is making sure that it's well tested, and ultimately it's going to provide and service that property from whatever it's replaced.
Yeah.
I think like triple glazing, the classic one. I think it was touched on an NHBC seminar not so long ago, and I think the cost of importing the product and producing it outweighs the long-term benefit of having it. So again, a lot of people say, why aren't you using triple glazing? Yeah, it's out there, and yes, it's a product that is being used, but realistically, and again, going into the carbon footprint, the actual what's being produced to actually produce the product itself transporting it over to the UK and to put it into homes kind of outweighs the overall benefit of having it. So that's a classic example, isn't it, of like a new product that's come in, it has been tested, and the end result is actually, is it really worth it? And that's great. We've got to be honest about it, haven't we? We've got to be honest about it.
And
Absolutely.
for us as a sort of family business, regional business, it's very difficult to sort of say we will pioneer new technologies. You know, we that's not what we're about. You know, we
want to make sure we're giving that customer
because
something.
It's reassurance about the quality,
quality.
and the products that we're using are all, you know, agreement certificates and NHBC standard compliance.
Yeah.
So things like the best example I could give you was the roof that I discussed earlier, where a roof now that goes on in 2 days used to take 3 weeks. You know, for the traditional alternative, that's the sort of advantages we need to get. You know, and it's finding systems that, I say, they exist, but it's making sure that they're manufactured to a quality, and that they're all accredited, and that they're affordable as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Well, I think you touched on it a little bit there, but obviously as a company, we've also stood the test of time. We're all nearly 95 years old now. So, I mean, what excites you as a company about us for the future?
I think there's a great opportunity for us. There's still a dramatic shortage of housing in the UK, particularly affordable housing. And having, you know, a solid established business in Wales, we're now established in Lancashire. We've got great coverage. You know, if you look at the geographical spread of our business now, there's a lot of, it's a very densely populated part of the world, the sort of northwest of England. And given the sort of demand for new housing and the absolute need, I think we're very well placed to take advantage of that. And it'll be a great opportunity for us to grow on again.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. 100%. Look forward to the future.
Definitely.
Exciting.
Well, thank you both for joining us. Really insightful to know sort of what goes behind the walls of the house that we see here behind us.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie.